Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that helps you cut through the noise and get right to what matters. Today, we're jumping into a skill that is just, well, absolutely vital for getting by in our complex world. It's about making smarter decisions, being more effective, really, no matter what you do. We're talking about critical thinking. Now, you've sent us a fantastic pile of resources, articles, research, even your own notes, which were great, by the way. And our mission, like always, is to pull out the absolute must know insights, give you that shortcut to being genuinely well informed on this. Okay, so let's unpack this. To really kick things off, maybe we should start with what is critical thinking? Where do we even begin? The sources often point back to a foundational definition from Edward Glaser. He sort of broke it down into three main parts. First, it's an attitude, being willing to really think about problems you encounter thoughtfully. Second, it's knowing the methods, logical inquiry, reasoning, the tools. And third, it's actually having some skill in using those methods.
Right. And what's really powerful about Glazer's take is how it blends the mindset with the practical application. Critical thinking, fundamentally, isn't just knowing stuff. It's about analyzing, evaluating information, aiming for real understanding. And that understanding, crucially, is what guides what you believe and what you do. When you see leaders using these skills well, they aren't just reacting. They're sorting through facts, finding the real issue, and then coming up with solutions that actually work. And it's not a one-and-done thing. It's constant evaluation, constant development.
So it's partly being open to it and partly having the toolkit. Makes sense. And speaking of applying it, the sources lay out a pretty typical path, right? A sequence for using critical thinking to solve problems. It starts with just problem identification, figuring out what the actual problem is. Then you formulate inferences, sort of educated guesses about it, hypotheses. Next up, you gather information, do the research, find the evidence.
Yep, the data gathering phase.
Then you have to organize and categorize it all, make sense of the mess, basically, group things together. After that, okay, then you devise and implement solutions.
But you're not finished there.
Exactly. You have to evaluate the effectiveness. Did it work? And finally, figure out how to make it better, determine the methods for enhancing the solution. It's like a cycle.
It is a continuous improvement loop, really.
That whole process sounds logical, but to actually make it work, especially when things get tough, one thing screams out from the sources: objectivity. They really emphasize looking at issues devoid of emotional influence or preconceived notions. Just context and evidence. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But boy, that can be the toughest part.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating, actually, how easily our thinking gets derailed by biases, common mistakes we all make, even when we think we're being objective. The materials highlight some key traps, things everyone, not just leaders, needs to watch out for. One big one is appealing to authority or consensus. Saying something's true just because an expert said so or because everyone else believes it. Instead of doing your own thinking, your own legwork, it's so tempting, especially now with information flying everywhere. One viral post can seem like truth.
Right, because everyone says so.
Exactly. And another one is selective argumentation. We sometimes call it cherry picking, basically ignoring stuff that doesn't fit your preferred view. The sources really stress how important it is to actively seek out opposing arguments. Because even if they're flawed, there might be a nugget of truth in there you need to consider for the full picture.
That makes sense. You need the whole story.
Then there's the classic misinterpreting correlation as causation. Just because two things happen together or one after the other doesn't mean one caused the other. Remember the ice cream sales and shark attacks example? They both go up in summer, but one doesn't cause the other. There could be a third factor, like warm weather. You need actual proof of cause. And finally, a really common one, especially under pressure: reaching conclusions prematurely, making up your mind with too little evidence, without really examining your assumptions or other possibilities.
That premature conclusion thing
Yeah.
and the cherry picking, it reminds me of something Richard Feynman said, the physicist. He said something like, "We are trying to prove ourselves wrong as quickly as possible because only in that way can we find progress."
It's about actively challenging your own ideas, isn't it?
That's exactly it. It forces you to confront those mental shortcuts, those biases head on. So how does that willingness to challenge ourselves translate into actually developing these skills? Because let's be real, talking about it is one thing. Applying critical thinking consistently, especially when under pressure, that's a whole different challenge. How do we get better at it when things are stressful?
Ah, yes, where the rubber meets the road. The sources offer some really practical strategies here. First, and maybe most importantly, is developing the ability to self-criticize. You have a look at your own thinking, your own actions, critically. Growth is pretty much unattainable without effective self-reflection. It means asking why you believe what you believe, managing those preconceptions.
Okay, so self-awareness first.
Definitely. Second is what the sources call totally engaged, open-minded listening. This is huge because, as they point out, it's basically impossible to simultaneously engage in thought and active listening at the same time. You need to truly listen to understand the other person, not just wait for your turn to talk or mentally prepare your rebuttal. Just absorb.
That's a tough one. We're always formulating our response, aren't we?
We often are. Third, and this is often missed, is learning to respond, do not react. Reacting, that knee-jerk emotional response, it often escalates things, leads to bad judgment. Think about getting an angry email and firing one right back. Responding, on the other hand, is about accepting the situation, pausing, and then planning a constructive way forward based on facts and rational thought. It's much more effective.
Respond, don't react. I like that.
And finally, there's forward thinking. The ability to anticipate consequences, evaluating your potential actions based on their likely impact down the road, on outcomes, on people, seeing the connections. Just reacting quickly isn't enough. You need to look ahead.
Okay, self-criticism, listening, responding, not reacting, and forward thinking. Practical stuff. And this is where it gets really interesting for me because the materials give us actual actionable things you can do, activities to sharpen these skills right away. One that just jumped out was about Albert Einstein. He apparently said if he had an hour to solve a problem, he'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 on the solution. They call this defining the problem as Einstein. It really drives home that point about understanding the real issue first.
It does. And it comes with some great prompt questions for that definition stage. Things like, what assumptions might be in play here? Which one should I challenge and how? That pushes you past the surface. Or, what am I specifically trying to overcome? Get to the core. Why is this problem even worth tackling? What's the benefit? Connected to purpose. And I love this one. How would a mentor see this problem? It forces a different perspective. These help you look at it from all angles.
That's brilliant. Okay, another one sounds super simple, but I can see how powerful it is. Is this a fact or an opinion? Just separating what can be proven from what can't. Sounds basic, but in today's world, crucial.
Absolutely. You can take a complex situation, write down the key parts, and ask for each one. How can this be proven beyond any doubt? What bias might be present in this statement? And how reliable are these facts anyway? Where did they come from? It's about peeling back the layers of assumption and opinion to find what's actually verifiable.
Okay, and one of my personal favorites from the list, using 6 thinking hats, Edward de Bono's method. It's such a clever way to force yourself to think about a problem from multiple perspectives using these different colored hats.
Exactly. Each hat represents a different mode of thinking. It gives structure. So the white hat is pure facts. What information do we have? What do we need? The red hat is for feelings, intuition. How do I feel about this? No justification needed, just the feeling. Then the black hat is the cautious one, the critic. What could go wrong? What are the risks? Why might this not work?
The devil's advocate hat.
Kinda, yeah. Then the yellow hat is the optimistic one. What are the positives, the benefits? Why will this work? The green hat is for creativity. What are some new ideas, different approaches, out-of-the-box thinking? And finally, the blue hat manages the whole process. What's our focus? What's the next step? Are we using the hats effectively?
It's like a toolkit for your brain.
It really is. And if you connect this back, tools like 6 hats give you that structured approach. They help minimize the emotional interference, make sure you're looking at it comprehensively, leads to better decisions. And not just for CEOs, for everyday stuff too. It's about deliberately changing your thinking perspective.
And just quickly, there were other great methods mentioned too, right? Like the Socratic method, that deep questioning to uncover assumptions similar to the Einstein thing, or counter-arguing not to win, but to truly understand the other side to strengthen your own thinking.
Right, and things like SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Classic but effective.
And even simple things like journaling for reflection or mind mapping to connect ideas visually. Lots of tools out there.
Definitely.
So, quite a journey today. We started with Glaser's definition, went through the steps of applying critical thinking, the absolute need for objectivity, and looked at those common pitfalls like bias and jumping to conclusions. Then we talked about how to develop these skills under pressure, self-criticism, real listening, responding calmly, thinking ahead, and wrapped up with those actionable activities. Defining the problem like Einstein, fact versus opinion, 6 thinking hats, and the others. It all really highlights how building this skill can boost your problem solving, your communication, your self-awareness, and make you less likely to be swayed by bad information.
Absolutely. And maybe to leave you with one final thought, let's go back to Einstein again. He also said, famously, We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them.
Hmm.
What we've talked about today offers you different kinds of thinking, ways to engage more deeply, more objectively. So maybe consider, how could consciously applying some of these techniques change not just your big decisions, but how you understand and interact with the world every single day?
A powerful question to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now go out there and put these insights to work.